Whoops, whoops, whoops. Some people can't even spell funky. And so that's it. There's our drums. There's our first audio track, funky thing, which this is our MIDI track that so if we wanted to go back and change this, we could and re-record it again. It'd be kind of a tedious thing, but it could be done. Now back over here, this is unused, and we're going to change this. Again, these columns, output, we want that to be so that this, and now my pad's lit up, so we know it's driving something. All right, all right, all right. This is so cool. Okay. And there we doubled that, but what happens to the audio? Does that double? Okay, so finally, now then you see, man, we're going to play this in. So shift and stop brings us back, record, play. And now we turn this off so that it won't re-trigger our deal again, and we should just... Okay, now we've got two of those. And we can go here, sample edit. We can loop it. And it seems to loop okay, so the red one stops it. And we don't need to fade the heads and tails on this, it works fine. We're going to rename it though, by convention. We're going to call it Freak Filter Mod. We're just going to call it Freak, I think. So there's that. And then we'll come back down here. Whoops, we'll go to here and make sure we're on audio. Come here, call this Freak, and do it. And now we've got funky thing and Freak going. Back to MIDI. We're going to call this Freak. So now funky thing, drums, funky thing, Freak. And we're going to go one more, just for the punishment of it. And do this again. Come here and make that the MPC. And now our pads have lit up. And we need a corresponding track. So there's another track that should be in. And now if we come back and make the MIDI track active, the pads light up. And now we're still in the same patch, but we can move on. Wow. All right, we're we're all practiced up, right? So we're going to arm track fork because we want to record the MIDI file. Shift and stop brings us back. Record and play. 2, 3, 4. Genius. Absolute genius. So now, remember to unarm that or it'll just record over the whole thing. And so, and arm this track and change this to auto. We're at the beginning and we hit record and play. Okay, and so there you have it. And I think that's enough for one. So let's sample edit, and that's pretty obviously what we've got. And stop, and we'll hollow lead velocity. We'll just call it hollow. So now it's named. And the other convention you can try here, well, and we'll start doing this, is to put the letter A there. There, is there any more? A hollow. And now we're into V, because this sorts alphabetically. So when you look at your samples, you're going to want these to come up. And if they're called Zapper, it's going to be at the end of all your drum samples. You're going to have to dick around. This is kind of an easier, it's just kind of a computer thing. So we've got 3 things there. Now we've got to come back here. That gets named. That gets named. Okay, now we should be in a reasonably strong position. Let's come back out here. Yeah, we want this. It's easy to miss that trick, and then you'll re-trigger the same thing a couple of times. And so we got a little bit of panning there. And now, of course, you can, go to town with all your effects and whatnot, but that's basically the idea. You now have a sequence, plus you've got all these samples, and you can assign these to a drum group. Like we can go here, make sure we're on MIDI, and come here, and this is an unused track, and we want this to be a drum track, and we want it to be program 1. Now we'll come back up here to our samples. This is our first one, and we're going to assign it to program 1, and it's going to be here. I'm going to put it on A13. You can put yours wherever you want. Now we're going to come here to the second one. We're going to assign this to program 1. That's going to be there. And we're going to come here to the hollow and assign this, and we're going to put it to the number 15. And that's all we've got. And we could actually get our drum break thing on there if we wanted to. And so this guy's the limit at that point. Now that you've got these samples, you don't have to use them as audio tracks because, they've got this limitation on the number of audio tracks that you're allowed to have. And so this is a way around that, because once you've got those tracks, you can chop them up. You can actually make the whole mix, you know, like you could play this. You can play the whole mix out and recapture that in the looper. And then you've got a whole mix, which is, you know, a good thing and a bad thing, because you can't kind of unbake the cake once you've done it that way, and chop that up and repurpose it. You can turn them into clips and play them all off. You can make as many tracks as you need, really. And then afterwards, let's say you wanted to make this drum track, which is, I'm just going to call this, audio loops. Now we can go here and pencil that in. So we'll just do one of those for now. So now that's penciled in. We go to the audio thing here. This is track 2. No, okay, that's our first one. And we'll mute that. And we'll go to freak, and we'll mute that. And we'll go to hollow, and we'll mute that. So our audio tracks are all muted. We're not listening to the audio. We're just listening to this one triggered sample. And now you can double your bars. Like we could make this into it. Well, let's see, how do you do that? I think you go into sequence and hit double length. And now it's kind of handled that. It's kind of handled this. Yep, see, it copied that. So now you've got more bars of exactly the same thing. But you could, in theory, go back and change some of those MIDI notes that we made and monkey with this outboard thing some more, and you could get some variation. You can also use the pattern things down here under automation. Okay, this is velocity. So you can change that, and you've got all these probability, you've got, you name it. There's a bunch of stuff and a bunch of different ways to go from here. But that should get you started, all right? Well, I hope that demystifies something. If anybody else was mystified, it took me months to figure this much out. All right, so we'll see you in church.